Welcome, ladies. I am so excited to present the Elite Brand Clarity Blueprint to you. Like I said, I have been toiling over this experience for the last few months. I've done some pilot testing. I have taken some surveys, done some polls, and it all culminated in creating this experience that I'm going to share with you now. So in this video, we are going to talk about the overall landscape of the Elite Brand Clarity Blueprint. I'm going to dive into some things you need to start thinking about while you're building your elite brand. And then we'll look at what happens and some next steps. Before I jump in, do not forget to download the Elite Brand Clarity Blueprint that is enclosed in that email that you just received. Let's get started. So you all know, if you've been following me for the last few years, I went through a pretty major brand refresh. What that also meant is figuring out what I did, how I did it, and could this thing be replicated? And today is every single experience that I've not only learned, but also have now been able to teach dozens of women on what it means to get clear about what you care about and how you intend to serve in this next season. So let's jump in. Why is it then when we look at two different products offering the same benefit on the same shelf? How is it that when we engage with one product over another, regardless of price, even when cheaper alternatives exist, even when a similar product on the market exists, why don't we buy it? This was a question that I struggled with, especially as a woman who did not historically charge for a lot of the things that I do now. And what I found is the one thing that all elite brands had in common were this really one powerful thing. And it's what drove the decision that I made to pivot my brand, not only my brand, but also my pricing strategy, my business plan, and everything else towards a successful brand identity. Now, before we jump into what determines successful brand identity, let's talk about what does not determine a successful brand identity. And these are the things that we leap into because we think this is the thing I've got to focus on. These are the outward facing things that happen as a result of the one thing that are often looked as the solution or the silver bullet to building a successful brand. So before we talk about what it is, let's talk about what it is not. A successful brand identity is not based on your competitors' pricing. Should you do market research? Absolutely. But ultimately, if you are like me and you are in a service-based business, then one of two things are happening. Either one, you don't really have a competitor because you are creating a brand new industry, or two, you are building a niche in an industry that already exists, which means you get to set the rules to the game. Example being, people classify me as a coaching consultant. Fabulous. That is a billion-dollar industry. My niche, however, is specific to working with women in service-based businesses. There are not that many people doing exactly what I do, which means I can't base my pricing model and my brand strategy off of what competitors are doing because they are few and far between. Next, your title. Again, I flew the HR title for 12 years, and that had to shift, which meant the titling of what I was doing could not be why my brand would be successful. Also, I don't find that titles sell when it comes down to doing the things that you do well. It's other things. Titles are important, but there are things that take priority. Your formal education. Unless you are a physician or an attorney where that formal education is tied to a specific set of letters or initials behind your name, formal education does not mean quite as much. People will know that you've got a level of expertise by the way you engage with them. So leaning into formal education, while it's important, cannot be the end all be all for building a powerful brand. Nor are industry norms, especially if you don't like what your industry is doing. Right now, I see a lot of predatory coaching practices happening, and I'm on a mission to change that, to rebuild the reputation of the coaching industry in a way that normalizes excellence and remarkable experiences with clients and consumers. Your website should also not be the thing that determines a successful brand. There are people right now who have a lesser engaging website but have remarkable brands because they're doing other things in the background that matter more. Should you have a website? Absolutely. It is an extension of your brand identity and not the brand identity. Your follower count should not also determine whether or not you have a successful brand identity. I've worked with women who have 30 to 40,000 followers on a particular platform, and I've worked with women who have 2 or 3,000 followers. Follower count can be a vanity metric you should exercise caution with if that's one of your metrics. I firmly believe in measuring what matters, and follower count is not always what matters, especially in the influencer creator economy where nano influencers have just as much impact as the mega influencers that have millions of people who know their names. Also, your business plan should not be the determinant in your brand identity. It is a component of what makes you uniquely you, and it's a set of written instructions, if you will, that should evolve and change over time, as does your brand identity. But we'll talk about that in a later video. The last thing that I want to talk about today that will not determine whether or not you have a successful brand identity is whether or not you charge for this particular skill set, especially if it's a skill set that you have been using time and time again, but maybe you just didn't have the words for them, or you're realizing the skill set that you should have been charging for has not yet found its way into your pricing strategy. So when you think about all of those things, they are components of building a premium brand or an elite brand, but cannot set the bar for where you are and where you want to go. Elite brands also don't worry about being the best product in the market. Now, I want to say that I want to make sure you are positioning it as the best product in the market. There are brands right now that have phenomenal product positioning, and that's why they sell. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're great. We want to build excellence while we're building our brand, but it's also not about being the best. Nor is it about how hard you work or how hard you think you're working, because clocking hours does not always mean clocking success. It's not about how many people you know or how many people know you. It's also not about how much you know or how well designed your logo is. And y'all know I love a good logo design. Being an elite brand, having a brand that becomes remarkable, comes down to one thing. And this one thing that makes a brand truly elite and truly valuable is going to tear away every product comparison talk and every should I do this or this. Elite brands come down to belief. A single belief in a product that is so strong, it has no choice but to connect one person to another, a product or service to another person. Belief is the most powerful and purest emotion that we have as humans. And so often we forget to lean into belief when we're having a conversation. Do you believe you? Do you believe you can do the things that you say you are going to do for another person? Do you believe in the ways you are called to serve? So what if we did a game of make-believe? What if building an elite brand is exactly the things that we used to do as childhood, playing with our imaginary friends, telling ourselves a story, and living in a world where everything we believe does come true? Make-believe ties into our ability to imagine things that are different than they actually are. It involves telling a compelling story and creating a scenario where we can create real images of what we desire. One of my favorite quotes is, whether you believe you can or you can't, it's true. And there's no truer statement than that when thinking about how you're building your brand identity. So think about what you think about. What story are you telling yourself about your brand and the vision that you see for it, and the next steps that you know you need to take to get it where you're dreaming of? How can you take that next best right step? Let's also talk about what brand identity is not. Like I said, it's not about reciting your resume or spouting your expertise. In fact, no one has ever asked me to pull out my resume when I am partnering with them on building some brand and strategy. It's not about assigning a specific label to a specific skill set, though words do matter. And in the later part of the series, we'll talk about words that will empower you so that you can empower others to help them choose you. It's also not about saying, oh, I'll just offer a special discount or I'll keep doing this thing for free. It's not about telling your story over and over again. This is about getting very clear. So, if brand identity is not about labeling things, then what is it? For a brand to truly be elite, and I've studied a lot of brands in my time. I have worked with hundreds of women who are interested in building powerful personal brands. And if it's none of those things, then what have I focused on? Well, I decided to come up with a definition because personal branding is personal, and business as a service provider is personal. So, in order to navigate these waters, I decided to come up with my own definition of what it meant to have an elite brand because I studied physical brands, physical brand products, and how they stand out from the crowd. And then I also looked at it, people who had branded themselves really well. So you think about your Oprahs and your Beyoncés and Taylor Swift, who now has Swifties, or Justin Bieber, who had Bieberisms. How did they do that? So after studying all of these brands, both, like I said, physical products and then people as products, I thought, these are elite brands. These are brands who have figured out a way to be remarkable. What did they do? And then I came up with this definition that I'm going to share with you today. Elite brand identity is a reflection of your core. It outlines your abilities and the belief in outcomes driven by clear, tangible benefits that your services provide. It aligns your skill set with the perceived value to your clients to ensure that they connect to you, that they recognize and are willing to pay for the distinctive advantages that only your service can bring. These distinctive advantages should enhance their lifestyle success or personal growth. That is the Sybil definition of what it means to build an elite brand. So I want you to stop for a second and think, what does building an elite brand mean for you and to you? Steal some of these words, take all of them, it does not matter. This was how I decided to drive my business forward without losing momentum, without losing the relationships that I had already built. And it actually strengthened the reputation of my brand, of what it is I intend to be known for. Elite brands are able to answer these 5 questions. Number one, who is this product for? Who are my services for? Have you really thought about who your services are for and how your services are going to help? Number two, elite brands are able to help people answer what makes us a worthwhile investment. Ultimately, as service providers, anytime we charge our fees, someone is making an investment that they believe is going to transform how they are living, experiencing, or doing life. It's more than just selling a widget. We are selling transformation and life changes. Number 3, elite brands are able to specifically talk about how things will help people. How will it help them? How will it help them in a way that it saves them time, money, or resources, or perhaps all three? Number 4, elite brands are able to clearly communicate trust in the outcomes. Do people trust what you say you will do? Are people sure that the promises you are giving them are real, that you can validate the things that are listed as the tangible outcomes and benefits that they are signing up for? And last, why should someone trust you? Why should they believe you? And again, that goes back to rule number 1. Do you believe you? Once you are able to answer all of these questions, you are able to develop a proof of concept for your ideas. And with that, I created the Elite Brand Clarity Formula. Now, again, hopefully you've had the opportunity to download this, but feel free to reference this part of the video should you need to take a screenshot or review it from a different platform. This is the formula that like I said, I have worked with dozens of women with, really making sure that it flows, it makes sense, and it provides the outcomes that they are desiring, which is to get clear about their highest value skill set. And it helps them set prices in a meaningful way to connect to the audiences that they desire to connect to. And it also helps them figure out things like, what platform should I be on? What platform should I be doing research on? It's one of the reasons why I transitioned off of LinkedIn and onto YouTube. I do my research now on LinkedIn because that is where I get good information. LinkedIn and Quora and Reddit. But then my brand needed to sit on a platform that more aligned with the identity that I was developing and building. So do not take lightly the Elite Brand Clarity Formula Blueprint. Make sure you download it, take notes, and then each day we are going to walk through each set of those questions as well as some other activities that are going to help you start thinking differently about how your service offerings look, how you should be pricing, who you should be marketing to, and then making sure the landscape fits in alignment with the legacy that you intend to leave behind, because we should all get the opportunity to not only get compensated for our good works, but then also make sure that we are building something for the next generation to come. The other thing that I found while I was building the Elite Brand Clarity Formula Blueprint is I ran a couple of polls and surveys. And what I found is, out of all of the challenges women were facing in their business, the number one thing that they were most concerned about, 53% said visibility to ideal clients, and very specifically ideal. Again, these are women who have 20, 30, 50,000 followers who are still struggling to get their brand seen to ideal clients. So that was really specific to the work that is being done here. The next thing was brand message clarity, which of course, if you've got a clear message, it makes visibility to the ideal clients a whole lot easier. 10% of them were concerned about pricing strategy. And what I realized after doing all of this work is having an elite brand solves 95% of the business challenges that women who are solopreneurs are facing right now. That is powerful. Those statistics lean into exactly why this work has to be done if you are going to build a brand that not only scales but sustains over time. If you are going to beat the odds of the 5-year cliff that so many people talk about with small businesses. Having an elite brand will solve 95% of the business challenges if you take action, if you do the things that we are talking about here today. What sets elite brands apart is their ability to build a shared value, a shared connection between clients and what you do. What you do every day is you share your gifts in a meaningful way with the world. As a result, your clients benefit from advocates and advisors that they did not know they need, but they are looking for them. I recently was listening to one of the many podcasts that I subscribe to, and they were talking about reasons why businesses fail and why brands fail. And they said because they only talk to the 3%. Now, the 3%, and we'll dive in deeper with this as well, the 3% of the people who are actively looking for you today, 3% of whoever your target population are actively looking for you today. So that means 3% of my 1 million women are looking for me right now. But if you only talk to them, then you miss the other 67% of people who do need you, but they don't realize that they need you yet. And the real interesting message here was, how can you build a brand for the 70% to find you instead of the 3%? I don't know about you, but I would much rather love talking to the 70% of the 1 million women than just the 3%. It's really great math. How can you start building a message that aligns with what the 70% needs at any stage and still effectively communicate to that top 3% who are prepared to purchase from you tomorrow? The other thing that I found that elite brands are able to do is elite brands are able to understand that the future of branding and marketing is personal. I focus a lot on the personality behind brands because we do see an uptick in AI. If you've got an elite brand, then that means your brand is going to be able to do these four things. And these four things have to do with shifting to the future, but also remembering how brands started in the first place. The history of marketing was first we started with radio, then television, now internet. And now what we're seeing is a return to getting back to the core of why brands exist. And they exist to solve problems, to make us as humans better. One of the things that women often worry about, though, is, but what about AI? AI will not steal the things that you are able to do if you're leaning into these four areas of humanity that a computer simply cannot do. And the first one is this: how can your brand express creativity? Huge. A computer cannot create. It can only recreate what someone else has told them to create. Even AI. AI is not creating new ideas. It's compiling all of the ideas that creative people gave them and synthesizing it into one thing that looks and sounds and feels correct. But creativity can only come from human hands. The second thing elite brands are able to do is offer critical thinking. Critical thinking is the number one skill employers are looking for, which means that's also the number one skill people who need your services are looking for. Can you critically think about their problem in a way that they're not thinking about it and provide a solution that no one else can think of? How can you start thinking differently about your critical thinking skills in a new way based off of who you intend to serve? Next, compassion is not to be overlooked, especially for the empathetic, service-minded expert that you are. Being able to build a brand with compassion will separate you from everyone else in your industry, regardless of how noisy we think it is. Compassion reigns every single time to create meaningful experiences for people who want to connect with you and continue to connect with you. And then fourth, elite brands are able to focus on collaboration. I don't know about you, but I like using ChatGPT as a tool, but there's something different when I talk to my coach or my mentor. or when I'm able to advise face to face, human to human, and person to person. There's a different level of cognition that happens when we are able to collaborate and come together. And this is what separates elite brands. How can you build collaboration into your business schema without it costing you too much time? There are ways, because of the internet, through videos like this, that we can still feel like we're in a collaborative environment, even if we are not physically present in the same room. Other questions that elite brands are able to do to become irresistible and stand the test of time is they figure out how to replicate their systems. Can you replicate what you are doing? How easy would it be for you to replicate the things? Let's say the file cabinet won't open one day. How quickly can you pick up and restart and replicate your processes? That is a sign that your brand is becoming irresistible. Second, can you create an SOP? One of the things that I challenge all of my women in business to do is if you write it down, then it exists. I challenge you to write down every single process you think you have and then see, does it follow a logical line of thinking? If not, then it's not the right SOP or it's not the right process. You should be able to figure out how to SOP every single thing that you are doing for someone and make it so easy that if it were to be dropped into the hands of that first or next hire, they can pick it up and it's a smooth transition, something extremely seamless. Once I realized I had an SOP, then that meant I had a process that I could make sure that the outcomes were the exact same every single time for the women that I worked with. Third, can you automate these systems? Again, this is your opportunity to leverage AI and not to be fearful about it. Automation is how brands become irresistible because there are only 24 hours in a day and there's only one you. So the more you're able to automate, the more you know you're able to replicate and systematize things and your processes for helping your clients achieve the goals that they desire. And last, would a 7-year-old get it? Now, I say this pretty tongue in cheek, but a lot of the testing that I did and piloting that I did, not specifically for the full brand message, but for some components of the words that I was using, is I would just go talk to my niece. And my niece is 8. So if she understood what I was saying, then I felt there was a good chance that the explanations that I was using would be universal, that I would be able to reach the 70% and not just the 3% who understand the industry jargon or the words that I would typically say. Can you boil down your expertise? Because you're fabulous, you know a lot of things. Can you boil it down to something that's so easy? You could talk to a child and they would immediately understand what it is you do and how you serve and how you might be able to help them. Is it so easy? A caveman can do it. And I love the Geico commercial because ultimately that's what elite brands do. They figure out how to connect to the part of our brain that wants things to come easy to us. If you think a caveman can do it, then you are on the way to building an irresistible brand. No one wants to think hard or work hard about the services you're offering. And if you make people think too hard, then they're going to think that they're not making the right decision. And so when you're thinking through all of the services you're offering, how can you boil it down to really simple words, really easy packages, really specific processes that follow a line of logic anyone can walk along and figure out, okay, this is the next best step. This is the next thing that I can anticipate from what this person might do next. Even through your unique problem solving, even through all of the other things. That is the key. Elite brands figure out how to make things simple or easy. This is the number one thing irresistible brands do. They help make your decisions simple and easy. If a product looks too complicated, we put it back on the shelf, right? If the toys have too many parts for us to assemble, we say, oh no, this is not the toy for us. If the puzzle has too many pieces, we'll say, ooh, this looks really complicated. Can you get to simple and easy? And uh, it's a really hard thing for experts to do because we want to tell people everything. We want to give them everything. We want to make sure they are armed with every single part of the knowledge that we have. That is how we overcomplicate our processes. That's how we confuse people. When someone signs up for your skill set and your experience, it needs to be so simple. You can say it in 5, 6, or 7 words and they will get it. Now, in a later video, I'm going to talk about how to get down to the one thing, how to craft that power statement, and also how to tell people what you do in 1 or 2 words. For an example, my 1 or 2 words, I had to pick 2 because I believe in clumping things together, but my 2 words are accessible entrepreneurship. Everything that I do with my brand has to do with making entrepreneurship accessible. I remember watching Steve Jobs, and when he was introducing the iPhone and people were talking about features and benefits and doing all of these things, Steve Jobs said, it's a phone. How powerful was that? Simple. We all know what a phone is. Does the phone record, play, take pictures, video, chat, message, Slack, apps? Yes. But he said, it's still a phone. Can you get to a place where you can say something with authority and have it make sense immediately? If so, you are on your way to an irresistible elite brand. All right. I hope you enjoyed this section. In the next lesson, we're going to jump into Elite Brand Pillar 1, and that is going to be evaluate your core. See you on the other side. Don't forget to reach out to me if you have any questions about this. If you have any problems with any of the downloads, let me know, and I will see you then.